Hi everybody, welcome to Colloquia Comica. That's just comics chat. Here we are to chat in depth about the things we love, the myths, the history, the themes going through these comics. We've done a review of this week's Flash, Green Lantern, and to complete my top three characters, now I'm going for Aquaman. So let's see. Does anyone remember what went down last time in Aquaman? Oh my God, Aquaman's been cancelled again. Oh no, it hasn't. It's just been rebadged as Emperor Aquaman. So the empire starts here. I'm not entirely sure in what sense it's an empire. Like King of Atlantis since the 60s, since the Silver Age, and he becomes the king, he loses the kingship, he's coming and going as king all the time. So how do we get rid of how do we get out of this cycle of is he a king or not? Well, make him an emperor. Why not? Again, like emperor implies in some way that Atlantis is going to expand. Like they've always had like his evil brother or whoever who want to conquer the surface world, right? So is that's not what he's doing, right? In what sense is he an emperor? He's taking maybe not conquering the surface, but uniting. We could say uniting the kingdoms under the water. All is, I get some in some sense he's going cosmic. But anyway, this is 15 of the current run. Don't know what that would be in legacy numbers. And anyone want to do the calculations, let me know. He must be up. Well, it must be Aquaman 300, 400 by now. Yeah, all the times it's been cancelled over the years. Who knows? But anyway, I like the cover looks great. The artist is Timms, is it? So Adams is the writer. Timms is the artist. Again, looks great. Whether he's got a beard or not, they're going back with the classic look. Uh, I wasn't too keen on this, trident becoming like a sword. It just slips down and it's kind of a sword. But I get what they're trying to do. It's like King Arthur with the sword and the stone. And is it a trident or a sword? It can be both. Why not? And he's kind of developing this new uh, cast. There's Superman's ex-girlfriend, who's also a mermaid. Again, he loves these obscure characters. Uh, is that King Shark or someone else? Not entirely sure. But Starro's growing again. So they had this, Starro. I don't know. He got blew up or something, and there's a tiny bit of him survived. And is this the Starro that was friends with Batman? Like there was this like little baby Starro that was friends with Batman for a while, which was a bit unusual, but why not? They're not afraid to embrace those quirky aspects anymore. But I'm not sure entirely if this is that Starro. Of course, there was a Starro in the KO thing, so like there's been this amnesty for the villains, and Starro is one of them. So now Starro is friends with Aquaman, but it seems like Aquaman as Emperor is like controlling the Starro. So I'm not sure to what extent this is a partnership of equals here, but it makes for an interesting cover. But I like to have Mera as part of the supporting cast. They've recently revealed that Mera is in fact not dead, and Aqualad and whoever and Tempest. I'd really like to see Tempest be actually used more, but Adams likes, his quirky, like random sea characters, like characters that have been used in literature, in all sorts of pop culture that have some connection to the sea. He's sticking him in there. So, he's expanding the cast in that sense. Team Aquaman. Uh, yeah, I'd like to see Tempest, but it seems Tempest is going to be taking a backstage. I'd really like, like Adams like went to the effort in one of his final Flash episodes of retconning the deaths of a lot of these kids that like Flash's kid got abducted by Granny Goodness and he had to go and save him. And you found out like Mr. Terrific's kid hadn't in fact died. And also Tempest's kid he had with Dolphin. And it's like, oh, by the way, Wally, did you get round to telling Garth that his son isn't in fact dead? In fact, we've just brought him, here he is. Like we just brought him back to Earth for you. But yeah, apparently Wally just forgot to mention this, that he's one of his best friends growing up in the Teen Titans, his son, in fact, isn't dead. But uh, I would think because that was something that Adams had retconned himself, and now actually writing Aquaman, he would like have the chance to actually develop because some of the things he didn't get the chance to develop because he was taken off of the Flash, but he was put on Aquaman, and that's an Aquaman character. So who knows? Going forward, we may at some point see uh, Tempest and Dolphin's daughter, son, I think it is. I think they have actually included like Mr. Terrific's son somewhere. Like I can't remember exactly where that was, but uh, maybe it was in the Justice Society book. But you had Jay Garrick's daughter coming back, the boom, the flash of the lightning, the boom of the light, the boom of the thunder. Is that an expression? I'm not sure, but I'm not sure about the name. But she's around. Jay has actually met her. He's actually recognized he has a daughter. So we're waiting for Tempest to have. Tempest has to be somewhere. He's neither in Aquaman nor in Titans. He's just nowhere. So hopefully, I'm patient. Somewhere down the line, maybe he'll do. Maybe he'll reintroduce that character. But anyway, let's get into the story. So, they're developing this idea of the blue, like Swamp Thing, they've got the green, and then there's the red in something else, these like metaphysical realms. So, obviously, water isn't really blue, it's transparent, it just reflects the blue sky of Earth. But yeah, fine, it works. Like this metaphysic, that they love these metaphysical realms. It's developing the mythology, and Aquaman has always kind of lacked mythology. That they superficially kind of introduced Atlantis as like the most obvious thing you can do with an underwater-based book. Yeah, they did exactly the same with Submariner. Not clear who did it first, DC or Marvel, but for better or worse, it's been introduced in both. But developing this mythology, this metaphysical realm of all undersea creatures and how they're connected. Like because Aquaman apparently he's lost his powers now of communication with sea creatures. He's taken Mera's powers, and it's still not clear. Like from literally from issue number one, where it was clearly demonstrated that Aquaman had Mera's powers, but what happened to his powers? Did they swap? Has Mera now got? I'm still waiting to see if Mera in fact has Aquaman's powers. But she's still just kind of, well, she doesn't really have any powers, but she's still kind of strong. She can still kind of fight. But it's not clear what's going on with Mera. And of course, issue one was just introducing that, and then he went off on some other mad adventure trying to find Atlantis. But of course, it was a total wild goose chase because Atlantis was still actually there, as we just recently discovered. But hopefully now Mera's back, Tempest is back, Aqualad's back. I'm calling him Aqualad, okay? The new the Black Manta's kid. I'm still calling him Aqualad for convenience. Uh, so come on, Jeremy Adams, tell us what's going on. can you clarify what's going on with Tempest's kid? Can you clarify what's going on with Mara's powers? Does she have powers or not? But anyway, even though he doesn't have his telepathic powers of communicating with fish anymore, he still seems to be connected with this concept of the blue. And they love these metaphysical concepts in comics. So it's giving like the Speed Force, right? There's a realm they can go to. So now Aquaman has his kind of metaphysical realm. It's not a physical place, but it's a kind of watery place. It's not at all clear to me, at least. Maybe I'm not reading this as closely as I should be, but it's not at all clear what it is. But apparently, like it's. I get the idea it's a metaphysical, timeless place. So you get both young Arthur, but also old Arthur. So we can have the best of both worlds. We can have the bearded, long-haired Aquaman. This is clearly not Peter David's Aquaman. It's like a few years later down the line, he's going to grow his hair long again, but like you're really long. Not just they can't make up the mind if he's got long hair, short hair, and he never has that annoying middle phase. When you're trying to grow your hair long and it's in your eyes, and it looks great when it's grown out, but where mine is right now is fine, but once it gets in your eyes, it's like I can't. I just have to cut it because it's annoying. But he never seems to have that. It's like he goes from short and then suddenly it's long again. Like he just disappears for 6 months. Maybe it's another superpower. He can just grow his hair instantly to any length, and also his beard. But yeah, it looks great. He's got the tattoos from the Jason Momoa, who's now Lobo. So maybe he had the magic. He had the superpower to regrow a hand. Why can't he just have the magic power to just get rid of tattoos when Jason Momoa is no longer Aquaman? But he can get rid of tattoos at some stage. But yeah, it looks fine. Looks fine. Currently, I like this big fat belt. That this belt looks great. It's not an A for Aquaman. I hate it when they put letters. My name's Aquaman, so I've got an A. It's symbolic. It's great. But anyway, talking about the KO fight with Hawkman, he beat Hawkman. Hawkman's like, yeah, I have whoever has command of the air wins. It was like, I control water, and you're made of water, my friend. But as a good ex-Justice League fellow member, he brought him back in the next round where they're going to fight together with somebody. And so it's good to see them fighting together, but of course, they didn't proceed into the final round. But quite apart from what happened there. So they're kind of Aquamen for the different time periods, but what's going on here. It's kind of the circle of life that you are eternally present in the metaphysical now or something. So it'll be great to see how this plays out. But the blue is kind of everything is spread throughout time. As a water, as a metaphysical concept, can just like connects everything, unless the planet is barren. But where it's like to what extent is water something fundamental throughout the cosmos? Because we now know that all water on Earth came here from other places. Ice, comets brought ice to the Earth, and there was so much heavy bombardment of the Earth. We got all this water. It's hard to think all the water, all the oceans were formed that way. So it's reconnecting Aquaman with this cosmic thing, because if you think of Green Lantern is off in outer space, and Aquaman, it has to be very earthly, not even Earth, like on the surface. He's even a fish out of water on the surface, never mind in outer space. But this is kind of interesting that I think they want to take Aquaman in a more cosmic direction, and it's something they did back in the 60s with all their wacky adventures. Like Aquaman was traveling in outer space, like the same as Batman and everything in the 60s. Yeah, they were all traveling through outer space. But an interesting way of doing that is just to recognize that, yeah, water does come from outer space. So Aquaman should be at home in outer space. If he goes to the right places, and if he travels through the blue, he can pretty much get to anywhere in the cosmos through the water. Like the water is like a portal or something, metaphysically taking him somewhere else in the multiverse, or at least the universe. But anyway, that's just me blabbering. I don't know if that's uh, what the writer has in mind, but find the others, reunite. So what's going on. So of course, the irony is that young Arthur can't swim, so he's still on that path. So of course he's calling him Minnow, like is this like this name they always gave Aqualad. So currently, Superman is AWOL, is MIA, replaced by the reign of the Superboys. Like could you have a time displaced? Yeah, because we've had time displaced Justice Leaguers in Justice League United. A time displaced 90s Peter David Aquaman was one of those. Would they go down the line of having a time displaced Aqua Boy that is actually Arthur? Because they've done that with one of the Superboys in the reign of the Superboys is a time displaced uh, Superboy, as in Clark Kent from the past. So it'd be interesting to see to what extent they're going to milk that concept. But he seems to be, in a metaphysical realm, your childhood is like your core self. It's like who you are inside. So this is interesting that it's the aspect of Arthur that is land-based. That if they're going with the current, I mean, which origin version that they go with is the Lighthouse Boy. So this is Arthur before he discovered his Atlantean heritage, and that's still an aspect of his psyche. So in the blue, all aspects of his psyche are present. Basically, it's in his mind, like call it mind, psyche, heart, metaphysical realm. Uh, I think that's how I interpret it. Correct me if someone has read this more carefully than I have. But of course, Mera, meanwhile, Mera is still fighting who, in fact, is not their daughter, as was teased for a long time, but is in fact her mother. So, like Chebel, she hates Atlantis because it was maybe, I think, if I remember correctly, she was the reason why the Chebelins, what do you call them? Chebelians, the people from Chebel, the reason why they were banished into this other dimension. And so that's why she's fought to uh, replace the Atlanteans. That's why she did this switch, which worked as a nice twist when like Mera died. It wasn't actually Mera. They were these Chebel people who had taken on the visage of Atlanteans just to make Arthur think his wife was dead. But ridiculous wild goose chase. The Atlanteans were just where they were, but in a different dimension. How can you be in the same place but in a different dimension? I don't know, but they were still there. So he went on that wild goose chase. But this is the journey of the hero. Like it doesn't. Okay, he wanted to find his wife, but for us, the fun is the journey. You like meeting these crazy characters that Adams is filling Aquaman out with. And I'm not convinced these characters work as long term. because I just want to know what's going on with Tempest. I just want Tempest to have somewhere. Dolphin. Let's bring Dolphin back. Which Dolphin is it? Is it the Dolphin that was in the New 52 that was just like totally unrelated? If her son is still around, she must have had that son, and therefore a past relationship with Garth. It's so, with the New 52, it's so vague what is or isn't canon. And I don't care too much about canon, but I want to know, does does Garth still have a relationship with Dolphin? If they split up over the death of their son, but their son's not dead, is that going to bring them back together? Or maybe just the baby or the kid that was brought up by Granny Goodness, maybe he just stays on Apocalypse until Adam sorts it out. But I'm patient. Like next story arc, perhaps. I'm patient. I'm quite happy to give these random C associated characters from literature. I'm quite happy to give them a time, give them their moment to shine. But her mother does seem to have some motive for hating Atlantis. But it's that kind of thing. Like, yeah, is it the place? Is it the essence of the place, or was it the actual people? Like she was banished before Arthur was king of Atlantis, and now maybe it's time to move on. Like is it like this right wing idea of essence? Like the Atlanteans that just have this essence, and they always have this fixed essence that you can't change. Therefore, the current Atlanteans are responsible, but perhaps responsible, but not to blame. The current Atlanteans had nothing to do with what happened in previous generations, but maybe they owe compensation to to Cheval and to rectify that historical injustice. Perhaps they have responsibility in that sense. But Atlantis itself has also been like it's been sunk and risen multiple times, banished into different realms, banished into prehistory. Is why I initially didn't like the premise of Atlantis disappearing, because it's just like the Obsidian Age again. Like in Justice League, where Aquaman, like the whole of Atlantis just disappeared into some obscure past period called the Obsidian Age, and the whole Justice League went back to try and help Aquaman. And of course, like crazy stuff happened, but it went into a new Aquaman run, so fine. But it seemed like it was going to be more of that. But it seems like it's not what he's actually done, because actually Atlantis just was where it was. Like it was all just a trick. So, but I'm not sure going forward to what extent Mera's mom is going to be a really convincing villain. Like, to what extent is she going to fight her daughter as a traitor because she's because she married the king of Atlantis, who had nothing to do with the banishment? If anything, that would be a connection between the two peoples, right? I mean, the royal families always pull this trick. Like our two houses are at war, or two countries, and you bring about some resolution through marriage. Like historically, that's how kings resolved volatile situations between nations. Surely that's the whole point of Mera marrying Arthur. But apparently, apparently Mera's mom didn't study medieval history, at least surface medieval history. Maybe there's Atlantean and undersea medieval history that she knows more than I do about. But but I like this idea that she's full of hate, so that she's not able to see that Atlantis maybe has moved on, or maybe not, because apparently now it's becoming an empire, right? So maybe they're, maybe I don't know in what sense it's going to be an empire. Oppressors proclaim themselves victim to avoid justice, which, yeah, does happen. But this is the hubris of empire, like, because often the conqueror becomes the conquered in the next generation. Because the wheel of fortune, isn't it? Like, no one stays at the top forever. So it's like a warning to oppressors, like, don't oppress too much because you might become the next oppressed. And be careful how you treat others, because when the wheel of fortune turns again, what different treatment do you expect in return? All empires have seen this throughout history. So be careful how you treat other peoples. Be careful how you treat the oppressed, because when that wheel of fortune turns, you're next. And you see this in Greek history. You see this in all sorts of history. Like, for example, the Athenians treated their subjects in the Athenian Empire with total hubris. And there's this part called the Melian dialogue where they oppress a small island. And they're like, well, might is right and all this, but, like, Thucydides, the Greek historian, puts that right before where Athens lose their naval power. They stretch their empire too far. They try to take over Sicily, and they're wiped out, leaving them vulnerable to the Spartans. And then all the Greeks fighting amongst themselves. Eventually, the Romans take over. This is a great uh, simplification of great Greek history. But the Athenians should have known better. They had Plato's account of the actual mythical Atlantis, where it's right there. The original Platonic dialogue that has the myth of Atlantis. The whole point is not about whether it's historical or not. It's an allegory of hubris. The Atlanteans thought they were superior to everybody, but they were punished by the gods. Zeus shoots them down with thunder, with lightning bolts and stuff. But did the Athenians not read Plato, one of their own citizens of that very period? Like, they should have known better than to treat subject nations with hubris, because you are next. You are going to be the next oppressed, and Greek philosophers became slaves in the Roman Empire. The Romans were like, "Oh, we want to learn Greek because it's a privileged language." And Greek philosophy, very nice, but the actual Greek philosophers became the slaves of the Romans. So, if they'd actually set a better precedent, that may not have happened. Uh, so this is it. Oppressors proclaim themselves victims to avoid justice. Set a better example, Arthur. So now they're setting Arthur up as the next emperor. So maybe finally we'll get a king of Atlantis that read the story of Atlantis from Plato and actually understood it, like, irrelevant whether it was historical or not. Well, in the fictional DC universe, it's a real place, right? But it still has the power of the message, regardless of whether it's historical or not. So we get into some fighting, and I'm not overly keen on this trident thing, and I'm not at all clear. Obviously, Mera no longer has her water powers, aquakinesis, do they call it? But come on, can we see her controlling fish or something? That's not going to happen. And this guy is one of the Wonder Twins. He's here in Aquaman. I said in my Green Lantern video how his sister is in Green Lantern, also written by Jeremy Adams. So, including the brother in one of his books and the sister in the other, at some stage they're going to come together, the same writer on both books. This is what way the advantage is of having a writer on multiple books, if they can kind of not have it as like stupid crossovers, but so similar themes, uh, uh, similar threads going through those books. I saw that Adams was resolving some of his Flash threads in Aquaman because when he got thrown off Flash and is like, yeah, we prefer Spurrier, and we saw how that went. But then they didn't put him back on Flash. But a lot of the stuff he was setting up. I mean, he set up the 1 minute war with when they had Barry Allen in like some alternative dimension, and he had this like pearl or something, and I have to get this pearl up to this spire, which looks like the bad guys in the 1 minute war had like taken over and destroyed this alternative Earth. But this pearl is the same pearl that Aquaman gets in issue number one of this. So I see there, like maybe there was something he was going to resolve in Flash, but like, okay, now I have to resolve all those threads I've been setting up very diligently and carefully in Flash. Now I'm going to resolve those in Green Lantern and Aquaman. So that pearl, I forget exactly what that pearl did, but it was some connection to the multiverse or some connection to the absolute verse. I'm not sure. Like he went through that Omega portal, and that's where he went off on that adventure in the blue. So I'm not entirely sure if that actually was in the absolute universe, or the blue connects all universes. So is it a metaphysical blue realm that connects them all? I'm not entirely sure, but uh, that's a thread that he's been able to connect. So I'm foreseeing him connecting Green Lantern and Aquaman with these Wonder Twins at some stage. But again, the terrible stereotypes of there's only one queen, but you can be the queen mother. Like we would welcome you into our royal family. Just get over this animosity that we've all been hard done to. Atlantis has been treated badly in all respects. The current Atlanteans are not the ones that oppressed her people. Mera is the connection. You're like, surely her mother can see that. But yeah, it seems Mera's mum has gone off the deep end in this. But, she's got. Does she also? I think Mera's mum also has this aquakinesis because obviously her daughter lost it, and now Arthur has it. But she's not in a position to fight back to her mum. Like the power she inherited from her mum, she's lost. In that respect, she's a disappointment. Both she's a traitor to her people, forgetting the whole idea that the whole point of royal marriage is to end centuries of animosity. But just when you think that all is lost, is Arthur going to turn up with her aquakinesis? Because meanwhile, he's in the blue. To what extent can you say meanwhile when it's in a metaphysical, timeless place? Can he not just come out and? But of course, the tower represents something deep within Arthur's subconscious, so they have to climb up here. And who is it that's waiting for them? So is this the current time Aquaman, the more balanced Aquaman? You've got the earlier kid version, the later version. And our current Aquaman that has been through a lot, he went through the Peter David period of losing his hand, uh, died, was reborn. I understand we got his hand back. Like, it wasn't just the new 52. The new 52, it's retconned everything. They did actually bring him back from the dead after, like, Blackest Night. He was just resurrected with his hand. So that's kind of how he no longer has the hook hand. But is interesting the three aspects of like of his psyche. Again, harking back to uh, Greek philosophy and mythology, the riddle of the Sphinx. What being has four legs in the morning, two in the afternoon, three in the evening? Pause the video, tell me the answer. Of course, it is anthropos, man, a human. That the baby is crawling, the man is on two legs in the afternoon of life. And the evening of life is the elderly gentleman who's walking around on a stick. So, Arthur knows this, but the fact that it's a Greek myth is because it's deep within our psyche. Obviously, there really are no exact fixed periods of our life. But, where do we draw lines between periods of our life? But we tend to say, like, there's a spectrum between these three, but you can just pluck him from three periods that kind of define, periods that will define who he was, periods that were influential on the man he became. So we get the impression he's going to play with some elderly Aquaman. That has been done before, but in order to have both the bearded Aquaman and the shaven Aquaman simultaneously, it looks like they're not doing an absolute Aquaman anytime soon. That's how you can have your cake and eat it. You can have both uh, both the uh, panted and pantless Superman. So, do we have Aquaman with a beard or not? Like, just have the absolute universe as the bearded Aquaman. Absolute Aquaman will be the bearded one, thus having the classical look in the main universe. But here we've got all three of them for some reason, like they're meeting. So this is in his psyche, right? The lighthouse represents his safe space where he feels comfortable, the comfort zone. Yeah, he's for some reason he's back in this place. So this is not real. It's real enough. Yeah, of course it is. It's not real external physical uh, existence, but it has reality, and reality is not real in the in the sense of like French psychoanalysis, Jacques Lacan. Real and reality are not the same thing. We think we look out into the world and see reality. No, that's a construct in our mind. So the real is the nuts and bolts, atoms, the physical world, right? But reality is a human construct. Money, for example, is a reality. It's subjectively real to us. Try and buy a banana with money from a monkey. They don't share that reality. So this is inside a subjective internal reality of the human soul. Uh, so Arthur has withdrawn into himself because, he's lost his psychic powers, but he still has this ability to withdraw into himself with the power of the blue, much like the Speed Force is for Flash. At least they don't go with colors in the Flash. That's not the yellow or the red. Maybe the Speed Force could be the yellow. Yeah, the red is taken, sorry. But the yellow, maybe if maybe if like Jeremy Adams takes over Flash again, he'll establish the Speed Force as the yellow. But comic books they like to simplify ideas that may seem complex, but they're actually not. Like I mean, they're demonstrating that it's not that complicated. All these metaphysical ideas that you get in books of philosophy, it's these metaphysical realms, non-physical. They could be out there in the cosmos. They could be in a place that's not a place. Like how do you visualize or conceptualize a place that's not a place? Like heaven. Like you go to when you die, you go to heaven. It's a place, but okay, it's a place. Where is it? But it's not in any place. It's not in any direction because it's non-physical. So where is it? But it's not a place then. It's a place that's not a place. But so if it's in another, it's external to the universe, it's internal to the soul. It's nonsensical to say where is this place because we call it a place. We want to know where it is, but it's a place that isn't in any direction. But it's that direction inside me. But that's still a direction. No, not really. It's in the mind, in the heart, in the mind. It's in some place. But we just don't have the words to talk about these things. But I just like the idea of the blue because it's just grown on me, like, because this is the great thing about articulating stuff. That one of my teachers at university said to me, you don't know what you think until you write it down or until you actually articulate it out loud. So, just reading the comic to myself was like, oh, I don't like this side of the blue. And I've been blabbering incoherently about this Aquaman comic, and suddenly I've made it make sense to myself. So this is the advantage, at least for me, of making these videos that hopefully we can interact and share our ideas, the things that these books evoke. But what makes these things powerful is the myths, and this blue thing. I've just realised I actually do like the blue because it's the subconscious of aquatic beings. Okay, that's my interpretation. Anyway, you tell me what your interpretation is. Yeah. But anyway, they've got to get the three periods of Arthur's life that encapsulate the stages of his life have to get together. And apparently his family's dead, but not really. If I am wisdom and age, the boy is innocence and youth, what are you? So, simplistic, but it works. It's clear. The older man is wisdom, the younger one is innocence. And he's in the middle. Who is this cowering thing I see before me? Yeah, because he still thinks Myrrah. I think I forgot it, but I think at this stage he still thinks Myrrah's dead. He like the Chevelin people that he found in the blue. Like he's still convinced that was Myrrah and everybody, but they're out there. So your heart isn't in it, then remember where it lies. We are kings, fathers, husbands, heroes. That is what your heart is, Arthur, and that is what it is made of. So, he's just he's disheartened because he thought he'd lost Mara. He's retreated into himself. But it's to that extent that Mara is part of him. It's his great love. And he thinks he's lost her at this stage. So he's kind of directionless. But this is where he's going to find out that she's not dead. Come back to me, Arthur. When Mera's mother uses the aquakinesis to attack her daughter, he's going to get back into the fight. So Mera, she's alive. She must be using our soul tie to thalassa, Greek for just the sea. She needs us, Arthur. So what will it be? Do you stay in your dream of ambivalence, or do we fight for those we love? So he's basically just realized Mera's not dead. He's going to go back. Correct me if I've misinterpreted that. But they're going back to the real world, so that from this metaphysical realm, they can traverse time and space. I would assume something like that. So, of course, they're going to reappear at the moment where Mera is in danger. And, of course, he reappears. Is that the last page? Oh no, I thought that's where it would end. But he's back. And I think at this stage he still thinks that's his daughter. Like, oh my God, I have to. My daughter's fighting my wife. Where do I? But he gets the idea that he's been manipulated. But is it any worse? Is it any better? Like, actually, it's not my daughter, but it's like my mother-in-law. Like, okay, it's maybe not so bad, but it's in the same ballpark. So, of course, she escapes. Does she escape through the blue? Does she use her aquakinesis? Of course. She's gone to fight another day. So you don't get the resolution there. Like it's a bit of a cop out. Like yeah, you're just going to get that she can just like disintegrate herself into the blue, the same as Flash can kind of join the Speed Force and like not yeah, like these to what extent do these heroes still have physical bodies, like because they resurrected so many times. Yeah, Arthur was resurrected at the end of Blackest Night, Brightest Day, with his hand back. But I'm not sure to what extent this happens. But you get that lovely moment of coming back together. So maybe this is where the Empire starts. That the King and the Queen are back together. So we'll see where this goes. He's got this ragtag band of misfits. Atlantis needs us, but it's what's going to happen going forward. Maybe I'm not sure. I really don't see where this is leading. But that's cool. It's nice to this is essentially the first arc is resolved that he's been on this wild goose chase. He's found Mera. Actually, she wasn't dead. And she wasn't even gone. Like they were just invisible where they were to start with. But he's weaving some mystical thing. His powers are growing, associated with the blue, but maybe there's some kind of dark side connection they've been teasing. I'm not sure where that went. Like he had like the Omega symbol. He went into did he go into the absolute universe or not? Is the fact that there is no Aquaman in the absolute universe because like he like this Aquaman went there and he is both or something. But I would assume at some stage they're going to introduce an absolute Aquaman, but remains to be seen. I think they have teased like Atlantis in one of the books. Atlantis exists, but yeah, who knows? Correct me on that. But uh, of course, is this the last page? There's Garth with the real kid, who for a while we thought they were going to do the dodgy thing of like we can't we're too impatient to wait for these kids to grow up. Let's just take them out of continuity and bring them back older. They've done it with Superman's kid. They've done it with Flash, with Barry, not Barry, Wally's kids. To some extent, Wally's kids are still kind of kids, but they're a bit older. They've been taken out of continuity a bit to evolve them a bit to where they're old enough that you can actually do something with them. But it appeared that that's what they were doing with Aqua Baby, but becoming Aqua Girl. But apparently it's still Aqua Baby. So they're going to keep that. Garth is still around. Aqualad's still around. Who knows what's going to go down with Aqua mother-in-law? I'm calling her that. Aqua mother-in-law will be back as a protagonist. But I'm interested to see exactly in what sense this is an empire. Like, I think he's taking Aquaman in a more cosmic direction. So this is more an empire with realms across the blue rather than actually conquering the surface world or, in fact, the other kingdoms of Atlantis under the ocean. I think he's going to be uniting the realms of the blue because we saw this in, was it Dagon was the protagonist in the previous arc that was built up as this huge threat and then like I'm impossible to defeat and then just in one issue is defeated. That's my main criticism of a lot of these, that they've had a lot of build up, but then like the final battle just seems to be over too soon. I they, they did this with the absolute Reverse Flash, building, 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 and then like let's just throw him back in the whatever absolute Omega Speed Force. We'll discuss that another time. What exactly that is, but I think that's what they're going to do here. So is that the end? Oh, still goes on. So Aqualad is maybe he's getting over his hang-ups of being an equal Aquaman. Yeah, he's still an Aqualad. I mean, get rid of the name Aqualad, but give him some like Aqualad. They turned him into Tempest. They gave him his own adult identity. So get over like just give these characters their own identities. They did it with Nightwing. They did it with Tempest eventually. So maybe it's time for this guy to get his own identity. And I like the fact that they've changed the way he looks. But these are like characters that are not going to be major characters. But I want some arc at least to know what's going on with Dolphin, what's their relationship status, and does Garth know his son isn't dead? So that's what I want to know. But they're back together. Who knows going forward? Starro was on the cover. He's not featured in the actual issue. Oh, here's where we get to the Empire. So this lighthouse, I get the impression it's a metaphysical place in his subconscious. The Aquaman as a boy representing innocence and as an old man representing wisdom haven't resurfaced, so that they're just parts of his psyche. But it's interesting that he's in touch with a future part of his psyche, not just a past one, because we're always in touch with our child nature, right? Reading these comics is clear we're in touch with our child nature. But to be in touch with a future aspect of ourselves, that's interesting. Like, can he, through the blue, contact his future self? Because it's atemporal, right? He's in touch with a metaphysical realm that has no time. There's no reason he can't chat to his future self without actually time traveling. So I think this is where they're re-establishing it as an empire, more than a king, emperor. So yeah, he gets a silly hat. Why not? We've been content to stay below the surface to help our world, but we have a chance to safeguard our world by saving others, the threats of the universe before they crash on our shores. So it's this idea that he's getting more cosmic, the threats of the universe. So it's not just the seas of the earth, it's more metaphorical seas of the blue, of like the way that these energies that he's now in contact with flow through the universe and give him some kind of connection to something bigger. So this is our lighthouse, a connection to the blue, a way to shine a light across the cosmos and keep the darkness at bay. Dark side. So of course they're all going to follow him. So here we go. So not just a king, emperor. So let me know to in what sense do you think he's an emperor? Is he an emperor like in the cosmic sense that he's uniting the kingdoms of the blue? Is is Adams going to take it in the direction of Green Lantern? That they're both kind of going to be cosmic orientated books? Because it seems Hal is turning up in a few issues. Like they've got one of the covers has been released, and it's Hal and Aquaman chained up. Interestingly enough, Hal has the beard rather than Aquaman. So they may be going with the idea of like, like Hal, as he was in the 90s, aging him up a bit. Maybe it's just because he's been chained up for a while. But Alan Scott has the bearded look, so like maybe he's following in the footsteps of his mentor in that sense. We'll see. Anyway, let me know what you think, and be seeing you.